Good morning, everyone. This is Anthony P., your coach and contributor at the DFS Army. And today we want to take a quick look at today's slate, look at the teams we want to target. But most important, I want to also show you guys how we use the NHL betting and DFS model at Beat the Bookie service, which is another service of the DFS Army, and how we could find an edge in approaching teams that are maybe going to be lower owned because they're not the obvious, and how we look at the model in terms of being capable of attacking these teams and finding an edge in GPPs. This could also be applicable in cash, but I really want to cover a little bit of the DFS GPP approach when we're looking at prepping our day, looking at the games, and also cross-referencing with what the model is showing us. Sometime last week we had the model that was very strong on Carolina. And for those who remember, Carolina 3 came out really strong and were extremely lower owned. For those that follow my checklist on, not my checklist, but my cash list for NHL cash games, they've noticed that there was three Carolina players on that list on that day. Two of three were from Carolina 3, and people reached out to me and said, why do you have these guys? They don't have a lot of ice time. They don't play on the power play. Just one of the players has some exposure to Carolina PP1. But my answer to them was they're hot, and when we're looking at the research station, we could clearly see that in the last 5 games that Carolina 3 took on average close to 12 shots per game amongst the players. It's hard to identify and say when they're going to blow up. However, the model was really strong on them, and I think the coaching opportunity there was everyone was really focused on Carolina 1. I was strong on them on cash, obviously. People tend to focus really on the first lines and the first PP. However, when you're playing in deep GPP tournaments where you've got lots and lots and lots of people competing, or when you're playing in GPPs where you've got over 100 lineups in, those that really had some exposure on that Carolina 3 won. They took the pot home, and what I want to try and do today is just go through today's matchups and just start circling teams that we want to target, and then I want to take a quick jump in the betting model that we also use for DFS and see if there are any opportunities that we've missed by looking at these games, right? So I'm going to try and go really quickly through these games. When we're looking at goals against per game, this is a key indicator when people are starting to build their cash or their GPP lineups and say, okay, well, we need to target the Devils that are allowing almost 4.18 goals per game. So everyone is going to look at the Panthers. They've been allowing their share of goals also, but we're seeing this, and we could all assume that the Panthers are going to be very, very popular. When we're looking at Washington, this team on the road allows close to 4 goals per game. Some people are going to have some exposure on the Islanders. However, Washington might be more popular because of the ceiling that some of their players have. In the last 10 games, the Islanders have been allowing 3.3 goals per game. But when we're looking at Washington, there is an opportunity over here to target them with potentially the Islanders that are going to be a little bit lower owned. When we're looking at the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, this is a game that I am not going to touch in cash or in GPPs. It's also the under is also a play at Beat the Bookie for this evening. They on the road, Boston plays a really, really, really tight game. Tuukka Rask shouldn't be dressed tonight. It should be a lack. So take a look at the updates. Rask shouldn't be playing tonight for the Maple Leafs. Anderson is going to be playing. Both teams allow 2 or less goals, on the road or at home. We are anticipating a very low scoring affair over here, so there's not much here that's interesting for us. When we're looking at the Senators, I think the Rangers are going to be the team that's going to carry the highest ownership this evening. Ottawa, that's just terrible defensively, allowing over 5 goals on the road. Over 5 goals on the road in the last 10 for the season, over 4 goals. So the Rangers are just going to be a team that's going to be heavily owned. When we're looking at Columbus and Detroit, again, there's nothing that really stands out a lot. Special teams are strong. Not many goals, under 3, just above 3 goals, under 3 goals here. We're not looking at this and say it's going to be a blowout. However, in terms of scoring, Columbus is doing quite well in the last 10 games. They've been hot. They've been one of the hottest teams in the league with Buffalo. So this should be a pretty interesting matchup this evening. So, Ottawa to target, the Capitals to target, the Devils to target. So we're looking at some increased ownership from Florida. The Rangers are going to be highly owned. Some people are also going to be, depending on the site, a lot cheaper on DraftKings. A little bit more expensive on FanDuel is going to be the Islanders. If we take a quick look at our DFS and betting model for the NHL really quickly, we've got the money line analysis and over-under analysis, and we've got team total analysis. So if we're looking for a goalie, I really like to compare the model versus Vegas. So if we take a look at the Panthers, Vegas has them at minus 138, so let's say minus 140. However, the model says they shouldn't be that favorite. And when I take a look at what's pushing this money line at 118, there's many sub-models within the model. And when we're looking at how the Panthers have been playing in their last 5, specifically since Trocheck got injured, the short-term model is really showing that the Panthers are struggling and should be struggling against the Devils, or should be a closer game than anticipated. So when you're looking at a GPP goalie, Kincaid becomes really interesting here. When we're looking at the Leafs in line with Vegas, when we're looking at the Capitals in line pretty much with Vegas, but there's not a really big gap. When we're looking at the Senators and the Rangers, there's no gap. When we're looking at the Blue Jackets, there's 20-point gap. So we're expecting Columbus to be a little bit more favorite than when Vegas is anticipating. So in cash, you're looking at Bob, who's going to be a little bit more attractive for me than any other goaltenders this evening. The second portion of our model, you could take a look also at the expected value. There's value on Jersey, there's value on the Leafs, there's value on Washington, and this is compared to the money lines. When we're looking at the over-unders, this is also a great indicators for us. We've got Vegas and we've got the model. When we're looking at Toronto and Boston, the model is really pushing an under in this game. So for me, DFS purpose, that it is cash or GPPs, is not something I'm going to be driven to look at right now. When we're looking at Vegas 6.5, 6.5 for these 2 games here, it's going to be driving the majority of the ownership, specifically in cash, but also in GPPs. When we're looking at what the model thinks about these games, the model is just a little bit under what Vegas is anticipating in terms of a result, and we'll see how it affects the team total analysis. But when we're looking at the Rangers and the Senators, we are expecting close to a total of 7, and we'll see how that drives the team total analysis, which will jump right now. What I really like to do is I look at the Vegas team totals, and the top 2 is the Panthers and the Rangers. Nothing new there. We kind of see this coming by just looking at their opponents' defense and upside that they could have in scoring. But when I start comparing these standings with the model, we see a gap, right? We see a gap between the Rangers and the Panthers. The model is anticipating the Rangers to score one more goal than the Panthers. Right? We got the Rangers at 4.3 versus 3.6 Vegas. So there's a difference of 0.70, which is almost a goal. So if I would have to run with either the Panthers or the Rangers, I would really overexpose on the Rangers because the model is really pushing me and saying, hey, this is the team where you need to focus if you want to have 30, 40, 50% exposure on one team, and then choose the other percentages that you want to approach. So when we're looking at the Rangers, we're going to look at their power play line. We're going to look at Rangers 1. We're going to look at Rangers 2. We want to try and get some exposure on both those lines and the power play because this is where the model is pushing us to look at. Another team that hasn't really didn't stand that much while we were looking at the matchups, but it does stand when we're looking at the model here is the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets have the second highest team total of the slate versus what Vegas anticipates of 3.1. So Columbus has an higher team total than what Vegas anticipates for the Panthers, for the Rangers, but when we compare here, the Rangers are still top. So maybe a sneakier approach. It's a small slate. It's not a big one. But when we've got two teams with a team totals of 6.5, that's where the mass is going to focus. And if we got to approach a team that we believe is going to be less owned, but with some great upside that Vegas is not showing, or that the team matchups page in the research station is not showing anything that pops up. The model does show that the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be a team that we are going to want to target this evening. Not only in cash, because they've got some really solid guys that bring you a high floor, but we also want to look at them in smaller GPPs, 20 and under lineups, or even the large GPPs, 100 plus, 50, 150, and so on. So this is a quick look that I wanted to show you guys how we start our analysis by looking at all the numbers on the research station. We make ourselves a plan. We want to attack New Jersey. We want to definitely attack Ottawa and Washington on the road. Totally different team on the road than at home. Columbus was never flagged, and now we're looking at our DFS and betting model from the DFS Beat the Bookie service. We see Columbus popping up, and that could particularly give us an edge this evening. So if you guys got any questions, anything that interests you and what you've seen right now, you could find me in our VIP chat room, and don't be shy to send me a direct message, and we could continue the conversation there. So good luck tonight, guys. All the best.